My sister was laughing at our parents' funeral. Not crying. Laughing. The last guest hadn't even reached their car when Marissa checked her designer watch and announced she was calling 1-800-GOT-JUNK in the morning. She wanted the house cleared and listed by next week. I'm Raina. I'm 38, and I stood there frozen while my sister looked at 40 years of our family's life and called it garbage. We need to get rid of all this junk and list the property, she said, scanning the living room like she was mentally calculating square footage. The Austin market is hot right now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marissa, these are Mom and Dad's things. These are our memories. She cut me off with a look that could freeze water. You're being a sentimental hoarder, Raina. Stop blocking our chance to actually make something from this. Our chance? She meant her chance. The argument got worse when I tried to protect a stack of old photo albums. Marissa grabbed a worn shoebox from my hands and threw it against the wall. Hard. The lid popped open. Mom's personal keepsakes scattered across the hardwood floor. Marissa didn't even look back. She just walked to the kitchen to make her phone calls. I dropped to my knees, crying, trying to gather everything. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold anything. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of paper had slipped out from the lining of the box. I unfolded it and saw Dad's handwriting, shaky, like he'd written it when he was really sick. What I read made my blood run cold. But let me back up, because what happened the next morning was even worse. I woke up to the sound of a diesel engine rattling my bedroom window. It was barely 7 a.m. I ran downstairs to find the front door wide open and a team of movers marching through our house with muddy boots. Standing in the middle of the living room was Marissa, barking orders at some guy I'd never seen before. Tall, scruffy beard, cold eyes. Raina, this is Travis. My boyfriend, she said without looking at me. Travis didn't shake my hand. He just tossed a roll of industrial trash bags at my feet. Let's get this done, he said. They moved through the house like a natural disaster. 40 years of family history gone in minutes. I watched Travis sweep Dad's porcelain figurine collection off the mantel straight into a plastic bin. No wrapping. Nothing. The sound of ceramic shattering echoed through the house. He actually laughed. You know, babe, Travis said to Marissa, this prime Austin property could easily hit $800,000 if we gut the interior completely. They high-fived. Actually high-fived over selling our parents' house. I just stood there, paralyzed. Marissa wrinkled her nose. This place smells like old people. Everything needs to be gone before the realtor comes next week to stage it. Travis picked up Dad's antique grandfather clock, running his hands over it like a pawnbroker sizing up merchandise. If we strip the copper wiring and sell these antiques to a private collector, we could squeeze another 50 grand out of this place before listing, he said, kicking a box of family photos out of his way. Just get it done, Travis, Marissa replied. I want to be at the Mercedes dealership by 2 o'clock to put a down payment on that convertible. That broke me out of my paralysis. I saw Marissa grab Mom's favorite wool coat from the hallway closet and start stuffing it into a garbage bag. That coat still smelled like her lavender perfume. It was the only comfort I had left. I lunged forward and ripped it from her hands. You have no right. Travis immediately stepped between us and shoved me backward, hard. I stumbled over a rug and hit the floor. He stood over me, glaring. Listen, Raina. You're outvoted and out of time. Stop making this difficult before I make it painful for you to stay here. Marissa rolled her eyes at my tears. We're going to lunch. Finish clearing the small stuff while we're gone. The door slammed behind them. I was alone in a house that felt more like a crime scene than a home. I picked myself up and went to the master bedroom, the only place Marissa refused to touch because she said it smelled too musty. I started folding Mom's dresses, trying to preserve what I could. That's when I reached toward the back of the top shelf where Mom used to hide Christmas gifts. My fingers touched cardboard. An old shoebox, pushed deep into the corner behind winter blankets. I pulled it down expecting old receipts or tax documents. Instead, I found a single piece of folded notebook paper. Dad's handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere. The message was short: "My dear daughter, if you're reading this, check Mom's brown suitcase in the attic. Don't tell Marissa." My heart was pounding. I waited until Marissa was definitely gone at her expensive lunch. Then I dragged the ladder from the garage to the hallway access panel. The attic was suffocating, thick with dust and trapped heat. I crawled across the wooden beams toward the far corner, pushing aside boxes of old Christmas decorations. Then I saw it. The vintage brown suitcase, hidden behind moth-eaten quilts, exactly where Dad's note said it would be. My hands trembled as I undid the rusted metal latches. The suitcase wasn't filled with clothes or family heirlooms. It was packed with manila folders and a leather-bound journal. I sat cross-legged on the dusty floor and opened the journal. Dad had documented everything. Every single financial interaction with Marissa over the last 24 months. The story the pages told made me sick. Marissa had convinced our parents to liquidate their retirement savings for a guaranteed business investment that never existed. The numbers were staggering. Withdrawals totaling $200,000 wired directly to offshore accounts linked to online gambling sites and luxury resorts. She drained their life savings to fund the cars and designer clothes she'd been flaunting. I started crying as I read an entry from last year. Mom explained they couldn't tell me the truth because I was going through a difficult high-risk pregnancy at the time. They'd chosen to suffer in silence to protect me, while Marissa was bleeding them dry. I kept flipping through the folders. Bank statements showing unauthorized credit card applications in Dad's name. Maxed out within weeks. The signatures looked shaky, coerced. Like Dad had signed them under extreme duress. It became clear Travis and Marissa had been treating our parents like a personal ATM machine while pretending to help them on weekends. The guilt I felt was crushing. I'd actually thanked Marissa for stepping up to care for them while I was busy with my newborn. The whole time, she was robbing them. Then I turned the final page of the journal. A small black digital voice recorder was taped to the back cover. A sticky note attached: "Listen to the files." I pressed play with a shaking finger. Suddenly the attic was filled with Marissa's voice. Aggressive, shouting, "Sign this damn check. Are you planning to take the money to the grave? I need $50,000 right now." Dad's voice, weak: "Marissa, this is our retirement money. You've taken too much already." For 2 years, my parents had been living in hell. And I had no idea. The recording continued. Glass breaking. Dad pleading with Travis to stop yelling at Mom because her heart condition was getting worse. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. Then I heard Marissa threaten to cut off their access to their grandchildren if they didn't comply. The sweet, successful sister everyone admired was actually a monster who'd bullied our dying parents into poverty. I carefully placed the recorder back in the suitcase with all the documents. This was the key to saving what was left of my family's legacy. I wiped my tears and climbed down that ladder with cold determination, replacing the grief. 2 days later, a flashy red convertible roared into the driveway. Marissa stepped out wearing oversized sunglasses. Behind her was a slick-looking real estate agent carrying a leather portfolio. Travis followed with a predatory grin. They marched up the front steps like they already owned the place. I stood in the kitchen, clutching my coffee mug, while they spread legal documents across the counter without even asking if I was ready. The agent barely looked at me. He started explaining that he'd secured an exclusive cash offer from an anonymous investor requiring immediate closing. I picked up the contract and read the fine print. The offer price was way below market value. And there was a clause stating all proceeds would be wired into a single account controlled by Marissa for distribution purposes. Once that money hit her account, it would disappear into offshore gambling sites just like our parents' retirement fund. Marissa tapped her manicured fingernail on the counter. "Sign this right now. 50-50 split. You'll change your life. Don't be stupid." Travis moved behind her, using his size to intimidate. He leaned forward until I could smell stale cigarette smoke on his breath. "Sign it, Raina. The market's about to crash. Don't make us lose money because you're slow." My first instinct was to scream about the stolen $200,000 and the recording I'd found. But then I remembered Dad's note. Silence was my weapon. If I confronted them now, they might destroy the evidence or hurt me to get what they wanted. I took a shaky breath and lowered my eyes, playing the overwhelmed older sister. I need 2 more days to think. To pack my things. I'm not ready. Marissa let out a dramatic sigh and exchanged an annoyed look with Travis. She saw my hesitation as weakness instead of strategy. She finally agreed to give me until the open house on Sunday. But she warned the offer would expire if I didn't sign by then. They left the documents on the counter as a threat and went out to the patio to celebrate with wine. I spent the evening pretending to pack boxes while listening to them plan their future vacations with money they thought they'd steal. I waited until the house was completely silent and the guest room lights had been off for over an hour. Then I carefully retrieved the brown suitcase from my closet and slipped out the back sliding door. My car was parked down the street. I drove with white-knuckle determination toward downtown. Mr. Montgomery's office, the family lawyer mentioned in Dad's journal, was my only lifeline. The next morning, I sat nervously across from Mr. Montgomery in his office. The smell of old books and polished wood surrounded us. I placed the heavy brown suitcase on his desk and explained everything. Marissa's demands. Travis's threats. Mr. Montgomery listened without interrupting. His expression grew darker with every detail. He opened the file I brought, briefly scanning the handwritten ledger. Then he pulled a thick folder from his own desk drawer. He adjusted his glasses and looked at me with profound sadness. Raina, your parents came here a month before they passed. They knew exactly what Marissa was planning. I felt the breath leave my lungs. Mr. Montgomery opened the folder to reveal documents that had been notarized just weeks before the funeral. He explained that Dad had come to him in tears after discovering the unauthorized withdrawals. They realized a standard will wouldn't be enough because Marissa would contest it and drain the estate with legal fees. They needed complete protection. So, this house, who does it actually belong to? I asked. Mr. Montgomery pointed to a specific paragraph. It belongs to a living trust. And you are the sole beneficiary. Marissa doesn't have the right to sell a single brick. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming. He explained that because the house was in a trust rather than the general estate, it bypassed probate entirely. Marissa had absolutely no legal standing to list the house or force a sale. Furthermore, the $200,000 Marissa had already taken was classified as an advance on inheritance. She'd already received far more than her fair share. Should we call the police right now? I asked. Mr. Montgomery shook his head slowly. A direct confrontation might give them a chance to destroy the house out of spite. I suggest a different strategy. He told me to go home and act like I was still considering signing on Sunday. Let her host the open house she's so excited about, Mr. Montgomery said with a steely look I'd never seen before. Let her invite buyers and neighbors. When she tries to take their money, we'll step in and reveal the truth in front of witnesses. I left his office clutching the trust documents like a shield. Fear was replaced by cold, righteous anger. Every insult Travis threw at me, every demand Marissa made, they were just digging their graves deeper. They thought Sunday would be a victory party. They were actually preparing the stage for their own destruction. That weekend, Marissa turned the house into a performance stage. She'd hired a professional staging company to replace Mom's cozy floral armchairs with sterile modern furniture that looked like it belonged in a hotel lobby. The air smelled like fresh-baked cookies, a manipulative real estate trick to create false warmth. I watched from the upstairs landing as Marissa held court in the living room, wearing a tastefully expensive black dress. She wiped away invisible tears whenever a buyer asked about our parents. I felt sick watching her guide a young couple toward the fireplace, showing them family photos she'd strategically left on display. She sighed dramatically, placing a hand over her heart as she looked at a picture of Dad. I'm so heartbroken, but I have to sell. Too many sad memories. My parents would want this. The young woman touched Marissa's arm sympathetically, completely buying the performance. Travis hovered near the dining table where preliminary contracts were laid out. He was practically vibrating with impatience as he pressured the young husband to skip the home inspection for a lower price. He poured wine for guests with a charming smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. The whole room was a carefully constructed lie covering years of abuse my parents had suffered in silence. I waited until the young couple moved toward the table with pens in their hands, ready to sign. I signaled to Mr. Montgomery, who'd been waiting silently in the study. We walked out onto the landing together. I descended the stairs with the trust documents in my hand and shouted over the polite conversation. "Stop right now, Marissa. You don't have the right to sell this house." The room went silent. Every head turned. Marissa's face twisted from feigned sorrow to genuine rage in a split second. She marched to the bottom of the stairs, glaring. She tried to dismiss me in front of everyone, claiming I was having a mental breakdown from grief. I didn't waste my breath arguing. I pulled out my phone, connected via Bluetooth to the surround sound system Travis had set up for calming jazz music. I pressed play on the audio file from the attic. The soft music was instantly replaced by Marissa's screeching voice, loud enough to rattle the windows. "You damn old woman, give me the money quickly." The recording continued. Objects being thrown. Mom crying softly, begging Marissa to stop screaming. The young couple dropped their pen like it was burning hot and took several steps back. The neighbors who'd known us since childhood looked at Marissa with absolute disgust. The mask had been ripped away. The monster was exposed. Nowhere left to hide. After the recording ended, Mr. Montgomery stepped forward with a manila folder. Marissa's cruel voice still hung in the air while neighbors and buyers stared at her in horror. She stood frozen, pale, trembling as reality sank in. Mr. Montgomery didn't give her a moment to recover. He opened the file and pulled out the itemized debt list we'd prepared. He walked to the dining table and placed the heavy folder directly on top of the fraudulent contracts. He adjusted his glasses and spoke with the full weight of the law. "According to the will, Marissa receives this folder. These are the debts you accrued from your parents, totaling $200,000. The room gasped. Mr. Montgomery explained this amount was legally classified as an early advance on her inheritance. She'd already received her share. Since the remaining estate value didn't exceed the debt she'd taken, she was entitled to absolutely nothing more. Marissa stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Then her shock turned to blind rage. She lunged toward me, hands curled like claws. "That's impossible. Mom and Dad wouldn't do this to me. Raina, you manipulated them." Travis grabbed her arms, not to protect me, but because he saw the security guard stepping forward and didn't want to be arrested. His face had shifted from greedy anticipation to cold self-preservation. He realized there was no money. His girlfriend was now a financial liability instead of a cash cow. Marissa turned to him for support, begging him to help fight this. He pushed her away with disgust. "You don't have the money. I'm out of here. Don't drag me into this mess." Travis stormed out without looking back. Marissa stood alone in the ruins of her own greed. The guests filed out quickly, wanting distance from the uncomfortable drama. The young couple looked at me with apologetic eyes before hurrying to their car. Neighbors shook their heads at Marissa as they passed, whispering about how money had corrupted her soul. Within minutes, the house was empty except for me, Mr. Montgomery, security guards, and a sobbing Marissa collapsed on the floor. She wasn't crying because she regretted her actions or missed our parents. She was terrified of the consequences. She looked up at me with tearful eyes, trying to play victim one last time, claiming she was desperate. I walked down the stairs slowly and picked up the roll of black trash bags she'd thrown at me on day one. I tossed it at her feet. "You have exactly 20 minutes to pack your personal belongings and leave my property. If you're not gone, I'll have security remove you for trespassing and file a police report for fraud." She realized the sister she'd bullied was gone, replaced by someone who wouldn't tolerate her abuse anymore. Marissa scrambled to her feet and started stuffing things into bags, sobbing as the walls of the home she tried to sell closed her out forever. 2 months later, our lives had diverged onto completely opposite paths. Spring had arrived in Austin. The garden was full of blooming bluebonnets, washing away the lingering grayness of the funeral. I sat on the newly painted front porch with tea in my hand, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood our parents loved. The house no longer felt like a place of mourning or a battleground. It had transformed back into a sanctuary of warm memories and peace. I'd used a small portion of the trust funds to remove the sterile staging furniture and restored the cozy atmosphere Mom had always created. Marissa, on the other hand, was living a nightmare of her own creation. Travis had followed through on his threat and even filed a restraining order against her. She was facing multiple lawsuits from predatory lenders and banks she'd defrauded to fund her gambling addiction. The luxury apartment she'd flaunted on social media was gone. She'd been forced to move into a shabby rental in a dangerous part of the city. I heard from a distant cousin that Marissa was working double shifts as a dishwasher because no reputable company would hire her with pending fraud charges. She tried to contact me once through a borrowed number, begging for money for legal fees. I recognized her voice immediately. I didn't scream or lecture. I just hung up and blocked the number. I'd finally realized that protecting my own peace wasn't selfish, it was a necessary boundary against her toxic manipulation. The sister I once knew had been consumed by greed long ago. I couldn't set myself on fire to keep her warm. I decided to honor our parents in a way that would make them proud. Instead of letting their legacy sit in a bank account, I worked with Mr. Montgomery to establish the Deborah and George Memorial Scholarship for underprivileged nursing students at the local university. The money Marissa wanted for sports cars and vacations was now helping young people build futures of service and compassion. Every time I received a thank you letter from a scholarship recipient, I felt a connection to my parents far more valuable than any inheritance check. The house was safe. The debts were exposed. The truth had liberated me from keeping family secrets. This painful journey taught me that greed is a fire that eventually consumes the person holding the torch. Marissa believed happiness could be found in quick cash and material possessions. She ended up losing the only things that truly matter. True wealth isn't measured by your bank account or real estate value. It's measured by the integrity of your character and the love you show to those who raised you. Kindness and honoring your family, those are the greatest legacies we can leave behind. They build a foundation no storm can destroy. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about family, justice, and standing up for what's right. Remember, the legacy you leave isn't what you take, it's what you give.